So there's a couple different ways of making spouts, and I have to tell you, in my experience, none of them are really very easy. It's a fiddly little piece that you have to make in order to get a nice look to your teapot. So I'm going to show you a couple different ways, and then you can choose what you want to do for your teapot. Don't be discouraged if your spout doesn't turn out the very first time. You might have to make 2 or 3 spouts or have 2 or 3 goes at it before you get one that you actually like that you'll use on your teapot. So the first method is I have a couple spout makers. You can buy these online. I've got a couple here in the class that we can share and we can use. I doubt you're going to need a spout this long, but you can basically wrap your clay around the section of it that you want to use. As long as your clay isn't soaking wet and you don't take too long to do this, it shouldn't stick to the wood spout maker. So there's this rather long one, and then there is another one which you can use 2 ways. You can basically use this end, or you can form your clay over this end and get a little bit shorter, wider spout. So it's entirely up to you. So what I found in using these is when you make your slab, don't use the traditional thickness of the slab. Otherwise, it comes out looking quite thick and bulky, and it doesn't have a streamlined, nice look to it. Normally, our slab roller is set at about 1/4 of an inch. I would say if you can roll your slab out so it's half that thickness, then you'll have a better looking spout. So what you can do is make your initial slab, and then take your slab to your tabletop, use one of the rolling pins, roll it out so it is a little bit thinner, about half its normal thickness. If you want to come and get me after you've made your slab at the slab roller, call me over. I can change the settings on the slab roller so that you can roll it back through the slab roller and get it to be that half thickness, about maybe 1/8 of an inch. So that's what I have done here. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to assemble the spout. All right, so we're back here to show you a second option for the spout on your teapot project. We'll call this one option 2, and it's a more traditional spout. Basically, a hollow tube is our spout. So before we get started putting it together, just a couple quick comments about putting on your spouts and about teapots. So we want to make sure that our spout angles up. Okay, I have seen some students in the past, whether they get lazy, they're in a hurry, maybe they're not paying attention, but they may put their spout on their teapot and it sticks straight out. Or it may even angle downwards. We want this to angle up at roughly about a 45-degree angle. And the reason we want it angling up is that if we fill up our teapot with water and we go fully to the top, if your spout is mounted low or angled straight out, the tea is going to start coming out before you even tilt your teapot. Same thing if it's angled down. So our goal is to have it angled up, and we want the top of the spout to be at least as tall as the top of our teapot in terms of how high up we would fill it with tea or with water. That way, it's not going to come flowing out before we actually tilt it to serve it. So again, try and make sure your spout is angled up around a 45-degree angle. And make sure that the top of your spout is hopefully at least as tall as the top of your teapot, roughly about there. Okay, so I have made a couple of spouts using the spout makers, which you're welcome to do. And I am going to select one, and I'm going to go ahead and basically hold it here at an angle, and I'm going to trim it off and try and trim it so that it'll match up against the surface here. If I have any gaps, I can fill those gaps with a little worm or coil of clay. But I want to try and get it to fit as flush and as nicely as I can. And then I'm going to be tracing it and then moving in the thickness of the clay, which is about 1/8 of an inch, and drawing a second little tracing or circle inside of that. That's what I'm going to cut out. I won't cut out my initial tracing because then the spout would fall through inside. So I'll be cutting that out and then cross-hatching and slipping, putting it on, and then cleaning it up and perhaps trimming the top to a different angle. It just depends on what I like the look of. One other thing about your spouts, try to keep them proportionate to your teapot. In other words, I don't want to put a big giant spout that sticks way out on a small teapot. I just think that looks funny. I don't think it looks proportional, and I don't think it looks appropriate. So I want to keep it to something within reason. Also, if it's something that's big and long and sticking out, then if it gets bumped, it's more apt to be chipped or broken. So I'm going to probably keep mine fairly compact. This is the one that I'm liking the looks of best. So this will be the one that I try and use. All right, so I'm going to get started on putting this together and hopefully get it all finished up. Okay guys, so that's my teapot with the tube type spout attached to it. I have turned it upside down so that gravity is, and the weight of the spout is pushing down to basically push it into the side of the teapot where I've joined it. So I'm just going to leave it like this probably for about 20 or 30 minutes, just till I feel comfortable that that has had a chance to really join well. Then what I'm going to do is put the lid back on it when I flip it over, and then go ahead and put it in a bag. I want to keep it bagged up for at least a day or two to give it a chance to really join, not dry too quickly, so that as the clay shrinks, hopefully I don't get cracks around where I've joined it. Sometimes if your moisture level is different in terms of this being a little wetter, this being a little bit drier, then as they dry at different rates, you'll get little hairline cracks. Doesn't mean it'll fall apart, but you might get some hairline cracks there. But if you bag it and let it dry slowly, less chance of that happening. So that's it at this point.